there such thing as natural Ozempic? That's what a lot of people are trying to answer these days. And if you saw my recent video on GLP-1 supplements, a certain ingredient got mentioned quite a few times, and that was berberine. And berberine is starting to be referred to as natural Ozempic. It's appearing in a lot of these supplements and will probably continue to do so. If you missed that video, go watch it. But today, I thought it'd be a good idea to actually dive deeper into berberine itself, because people are claiming it can help with weight loss, with blood sugar control, and even replace these prescription medications to be used instead of Ozempic. I'll be explaining what berberine actually is, how it works in your body, and whether there is research to actually support all these claims. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as being able to say that it is natural Ozempic. So, let's go. So what exactly is berberine? Well, it's a compound that is found naturally in some plants. On the screen now are some examples of plants. I'm unfortunately not a plant expert, but it is found within these in particular. But it's not a new compound. It's been around for thousands of years actually. It's been used traditionally in both Chinese and Indian medicine as well. So it's not a brand new compound. It actually had its moment in the supplement space about 10 to 15 years ago when people first discovered its impacts on reducing blood sugar and also potentially improving cholesterol levels. It was really popular back then, and then like a lot of supplements, it faded back into the background. But now it's having a bit of a revival, and that's because of Ozempic and other medications like that. And if you're wondering why it's being linked to Ozempic, it's because it can potentially stimulate GLP-1 release. Now, if GLP-1 sounds familiar to you, that's because Ozempic and other GLP-1 analogs, they work by acting in the same way as this GLP-1 hormone. And once berberine got connected to GLP-1, everyone kind of got a bit excited again, because of course the GLP-1 analog medications like Ozempic and Mounjaro, they're making headlines because they can have pretty drastic impacts on weight loss, but also with type 2 diabetes because they are very good for blood sugar, and research is pointing potentially to some other conditions as well. But the minute people were able to link GLP-1 to a natural ingredient, it sort of took off, and so berberine is having a moment again. And that's why a lot of supplements are sort of rebranding. They're putting berberine in them and they're saying this is a GLP-1 supplement to help increase your GLP-1 levels. And I did explain in a video before, not quite the case, because calling anything natural Ozempic is a little bit misleading. Ozempic is a GLP-1 receptor agonist. And what that means is that it works in a similar way to how the GLP-1 hormone would work in your body. It mimics the effects of a hormone that is naturally found within your body. Berberine does not do this. It has similar effects, but it works in a completely different way. So that's what we're going to be talking about now. The main way that berberine actually works is by activating something called AMPK. Now this stands for AMP activated protein kinase. And yes, that's a big long name. You don't need to know it. You just need to know what this means. When AMPK is activated or switched on, it pretty much tells the cells in your body that we are low in energy. We need to start burning fuel a bit more efficiently. And so this leads to a few things. It leads to your cells increasing the amount of glucose that they take into them. It also increases how sensitive your cells are to the hormone insulin, and it reduces the amount of glucose that your liver makes. So your liver can produce its own glucose, and that will contribute to your blood sugar increasing. This sort of says, hey, stop, we've got enough, which is what you need if you have diabetes. And this is where a lot of the blood sugar benefits come from. And if you look at the research into berberine, its blood sugar impacts is where it has the most evidence. But that's not the only way that berberine works. It is, though, the main way. Berberine actually has quite a bit of an impact on gut bacteria. And there is some research to say that berberine could slow down the breakdown of carbohydrates within your gut, which is good because if you slow down how quickly carbohydrates are getting digested, you decrease the amount of blood sugar spikes that happen after a meal. And if you have diabetes, blood sugar spikes are something we want to avoid in particular. Now those are the two main ways that berberine works. The bit that's gotten everyone more interested in the compound is how it could potentially stimulate the release of GLP-1. GLP-1, it's a hormone. It's called glucagon-like peptide 1. It is the same hormone that the medications like Ozempic, Mounjaro, and other GLP-1 analogs they mimic. Those medications copy what this hormone does to your body. So there are some studies that have found that berberine can trigger the release of more GLP-1. And as we now know, GLP-1 helps control blood sugar levels because it increases the amount of insulin that you release in your body. But we need to keep in mind that the effect that berberine has on GLP-1 within your body is nowhere near the effect that the medications like Ozempic can give you. So what I want to do is actually discuss the evidence behind berberine at the moment, because believe it or not, it actually has a decent amount of research behind it because it's been around for quite some time. It's not brand new. And the really interesting thing is for blood sugar control and reducing blood sugar levels, there's actually quite a lot of evidence for this. So this is a study that was published in 2021 and it's a meta-analysis. So I've mentioned a few times, these are considered good evidence. They looked at 46 different studies and they found that berberine could reduce HbA1c levels by about 0.73% on average. If you're wondering if that's a big number, anything above 0.5% decreases to HbA1c is considered pretty significant and would be considered pretty good. There's also some research out there to show that when you take berberine, you get similar effects to blood sugar reduction as a medicine called metformin. Now, if you do know what metformin is, it is a prescription medication very commonly given to people with type 2 diabetes. So berberine has similar effects to an actual medication when it comes to reducing blood sugar. Pretty good. But now, what does the research say in terms of weight loss? Because that is the reason this is all of a sudden getting a lot of interest. The GLP-1 analog medications are very heavily linked to weight loss, and that's why people want to find natural ingredients that can do the same thing. Unfortunately, when it comes to weight loss, berberine doesn't have the same level of research behind it. It definitely gives you much better results in terms of blood sugar. In terms of weight loss, across the studies that seem to have been done, it seems that over about a 12-week period, berberine can give on average 2 kilos in reduction to weight. These weight loss results are much less compared to the effects seen with the GLP-1 medications like Ozempic and Mounjaro. Those medicines have seen much higher numbers with weight loss. Of course, that has come with its own criticisms in terms of how much of that is muscle mass and the fact that if you stop those medications, the weight likely comes back. But we're not here to talk about that. Purely on how much weight loss it can give, berberine, it's nowhere near how effective those medications are. Now, most of the studies that exist on berberine, they use doses between 900 to 1,500 milligrams per day. That's a pretty large dose, and usually that's divided into 2 to 3 doses a day. The reason it's taken multiple times a day, it's because it reduces the amount you have to take in one hit, which reduces the amount of stomach upset, which tends to be a bit of a side effect that comes with this. Just because berberine is considered a more natural ingredient doesn't mean that it is 100% safe to use. It can still interact with other medications. So if you are someone that's taking other medications, you do need to check that it's safe for you to take. But just as an example, some of the things it can interact with are other medications that lower blood sugar. So if you're already on medications for type 2 diabetes, you need to be careful before adding berberine into the mix because your blood sugar could in fact go too low. These are all things you need to take into consideration. It's probably a good idea to just chat with your doctor, let your medical team know that you are thinking of trying this if it's something you want to do. So can we call berberine natural Ozempic? Probably not. It can help with blood sugar control though, and it can produce a little bit of weight loss. But to compare it to the GLP-1 analog medications, that's misleading. And that's what I don't like about these supplements, saying that they can give you the same effects as Ozempic, or again, anyone on the internet pushing a berberine supplement saying it's a natural Ozempic. This is all misleading. Weight loss you can get about 2 kilograms in 3 months, which you can achieve that doing exercise. you can get more out of doing that. And we need to understand that the Berberine and Ozempic, they work in two completely different ways. It's important to know the difference between the two, because the last thing we need is people delaying getting actual treatment because they think something like Berberine is going to give them the same effects. It's very important to have realistic expectations of the supplements that you're taking, and unfortunately with the internet, people are giving and showing unrealistic expectations. Can Berberine help with blood sugar levels? Absolutely, there is evidence to show that it does, but I think the people that have the potential to get the most benefit out of it are those that are pre-diabetic, whose blood sugar levels are maybe starting to go up. They don't need those medications just yet. Using Berberine and doing some, of course, lifestyle changes, which is what I would always suggest, could maybe help out there, but just make sure you aren't expecting miracle level results, and definitely don't expect the level of weight loss that things like Ozempic have been resulting in. One really interesting thing about Berberine that people probably aren't focusing on is what it can do to your gut bacteria. The bacteria within the gut, that's been coming up a lot more in research, because it's been shown that if you have a healthy microbiome, which means the bacteria in your gut, then that can have pretty good effects for your blood sugar and also mental health and just overall health. We're finding that the gut is linked to things all over our body. When you take the supplement, a lot of it actually stays within your gut and it gets to interact with the bacteria in there. And some research has found that it can actually increase the amount of good bacteria that's in the gut, which could be why it has such good effects in terms of blood sugar. Now, gut health is an entirely different topic, but it's just something to think about, and I might make a video on it later on. But what I want to point out is that Berberine has quite a few ways that it works, and the GLP component is very small. It works on your gut, it works on the AMPK, like I mentioned earlier on. That's where all the benefits are coming from. And I do need to point out that Berberine has incredibly low bioavailability. What this means is when you take it, a very small amount is what gets absorbed into your body to be able to be used, which just isn't a good thing. The research that has been done on this has shown that about 0.37 to 5% of what you take actually gets absorbed into your bloodstream for you to use. So, for example, if you take 500 milligrams of Berberine, only about 2 to 25 milligrams of that will be absorbed to be used. The rest of it remains inside your intestines, interacts with your large intestines, and then it gets removed from your body. But what I said before about the gut bacteria, that's where this can help, because the amount of Berberine that stays in your gut can also have some benefits because of what it's doing to the bacteria within your intestines. So it's not all useless. What this tells us, though, is that it's very likely that the majority of the benefits that Berberine gives you is because of what it does in your gut. Now, as with all supplements, quality matters, and because the supplement industry just isn't well regulated, it's very hard to tell which products are good and which are not. So this is just to say, be careful out there. Because it's a popular ingredient now, you're going to start seeing lots and lots of products being made and pushed to you online that claim to have lots of Berberine in them, that claim to reduce your blood sugar, help you lose weight, act as a GLP-1 analog. You're going to see all of it, so just understand this can be misleading. Best thing you can do is just stick to what we know, which is what I've mentioned in this video. And if you do want to try out Berberine, make sure that it is safe and appropriate for you, that it doesn't interact with all your medications, so check with your doctor first. And always try and find reputable brands, because they tend to have third-party testing, which means that they have the ingredient that they claim to have. And start with a low dose to make sure that you are tolerating it well, and then you can go from there. But there you have it, a little bit of an introduction to what Berberine is. It is a legitimate supplement. It does have real benefits, especially for blood sugar. There's quite a bit of evidence out there for it. Not so much though for weight loss, so if that is why you're looking into it, I would say there are many other things that can help with weight loss as opposed to Berberine. But long story short, this is not Ozempic. This is not like any of the other GLP-1 medications. It's not a magic pill. Like I keep saying on this channel, there is no such thing as a magic solution. It's all about making those small changes to your lifestyle, but maintaining them over a long period of time, and then you'll reap all the benefits. Making lifestyle changes like doing more exercise and paying a bit more attention to what you eat, or making slight changes to it, will give you better effects than something like berberine could. So hopefully that has answered some questions for you. If there's anything you're still unsure about or would like to know more about, leave a comment. I will do my best. But I'll see you in the next video, and until then, keep playing the long game.